Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Now, you know that I had stage 4 endometriosis prior to my endo surgery in April. And usually, when you have endo surgery, you want to do everything within your power to prevent your endo from coming back because we all know how much of a nightmare endo is. And once you get that thing removed, you just want to do your best to support your body going forward and to reduce any chances of it returning. So after I had my surgery, I vowed to myself that I would learn as much as I can about endo and all of the various factors that contribute to it so that I can support my body and health back into balance. And could you believe that literally a few hours after my surgery, just bear in mind that I hadn't eaten for possibly more than 24 hours. Can you believe that the food they offered me was toast? I was literally livid. I was telling my husband, I cannot believe they are offering me toast because toast has gluten, and gluten is one of those things that us endo girlies, or I'm not claiming that for myself anymore. So, one of the things that endo girlies are like wary of, it's like huge red flags for us. So I was telling my husband, can you believe they're offering us toast when gluten or like bread containing gluten is something that a lot of us are quite suspicious about? Don't know if I'm naive or I just expect too much, but I thought after endo surgery that your hospital will give you anti-inflammatory foods, that we would even have a specialist diet. They would have a specialist diet like written down for women who have just had the endo surgery. Like maybe their doctors will put them on a special diet for the duration of their stay in hospital. But no, I was not only offered gluten, I was also offered dairy. And I had no choice really. I had to eat what was given to me, what was in front of me, because I hadn't eaten in hours. I ate that toast and butter. My mind was just racing at 100 miles per hour. I was thinking, they've just cleared this endo, and I'm eating these foods that contribute to endometriosis tissues growing and inflammation. And am I just putting back what they've just taken? I couldn't enjoy the meal. I was just so worried. I just felt like my specialist had spent literally hours removing all of this endo for me to only just go back and eat food that causes inflammation and, abnormal growth, butter, estrogen, all of that kind of stuff. I was so worried, but I just had to tell myself, you know what, just try and enjoy it, eat it, and then in the morning I will do a lot better. And I would ask them for a more supporting diet, more supporting meals. So I wanted to talk about gluten today because I know that gluten is a huge topic in the endo community. It's also a huge topic in the autoimmunity community. So after this video, perhaps next week, I will be uploading a video about gluten and autoimmune thyroid conditions. So if you have Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, we need to talk about gluten as well. But for today, let's talk endo and gluten because we need to fully understand what is the hype about gluten, i.e., what is the fear related to gluten. Is it really something we should be avoiding? Is it actually okay? What exactly is it about gluten that is the issue? Let's talk about all of this stuff. If I just think back to my lifestyle prior to my surgery and even prior to my endo diagnosis and the symptoms that I was experiencing, yeah, my diet did compromise of quite a bit of gluten. Yeah, I used to eat bread every day for breakfast. And then even before I used to have toast, I used to eat cereal every day for breakfast. And cereal is wheat based. Most cereals do contain gluten. I also grew up eating sandwiches every day for lunch. So yeah, I've eaten gluten, not in every single meal of the day, but I've definitely had gluten in at least one meal of most days of my life. Not that gluten causes endo, but it is one of those things that can contribute to endo. And we know that there are a lot of potential causes or things that contribute to endo. So gluten is one of those things. When you have a endocrine system, a hormone system that is already susceptible to illness and dis-ease, we need to be taking extra precautions to support our body and not to put our body under even more strain. So it only makes sense for us to be cautious and to at the very least, look into things like potentially reducing or completely eliminating gluten, inflammatory foods, processed foods, many of the things that just aren't really conducive to our health. So, yeah, I was eating gluten regularly prior to my surgery and prior to my symptoms really showing up. There could have been other things that I was doing in my life that was contributing to endo, which we'll explore in many videos to come. But yeah, I was at least having daily exposure to gluten. So going back to my surgery, I decided to become gluten-free the weekend prior to my surgery. And then, excusing the mishap that happened on the night of the surgery when they gave me toast to eat, I was able to go 5 months without gluten. So I went from April to September, just a few days ago, being gluten free. And I was doing so well. I was so proud of myself. But on, was it Thursday or Wednesday? It was actually Tuesday evening. I kind of screwed things up and went back to zero. Basically, I was attending an event at work. So we were staying over in Wales. Prior to us going, they had told us that for the evening meal, it would be pizza and nibbles and drinks. And being like an ex-endo girly or someone who's just like super hyper vigilant about her health, I was like, okay, I'm not going to eat pizza. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my own dinner. I'm going to have my own dinner at the hotel, and I wouldn't need to eat any pizza. But when I arrived at the bar, it was literally a sit down affair. So upstairs, which is the area, the space that we were using, that they had booked for us, it was literally like tables, laid out tables, plates, knives, forks. Everything was laid out like a full blown sit down meal. So everyone had a seat. So I couldn't escape this kind of eating affair. So I had to sit down at my spot, obviously, in my seat. And then when they brought the pizza out, everyone was given like a slice of pizza or like pizza that you can cut from. So because it was a sit down meal, I ate the pizza because I was thinking there's not really a way that I can get out of this. Like it would look so weird for me to be sitting down at a table that is laid out and there's food in front of me and I'm not eating the food whilst everyone else is eating. So I felt like I had to eat the pizza. I had to eat the gluten. And I felt like I couldn't even ask for gluten-free pizza because the restaurant obviously had either like made or cooked this pizza in advance for our group. Like for them to suddenly start trying to make or warm up gluten-free pizza, I just felt like it would be a burden and a hassle for them. So I didn't even bother ask them like, is there any gluten-free options available? Do you have gluten-free pizza? I just ate the pizza and just tried to be quiet and tried not to worry myself too much because, again, I don't want to cause inflammation and more distress and, unease in my body by overly worrying myself. So I ended up having gluten on Tuesday night after 5 months of being free. And I take full responsibility. It's my fault for not speaking up, for perhaps not checking with the organizer, like what was the plan for the evening? Would it be takeaway pizzas that we'd be given to eat, or was it a sit down affair? Lesson for me and potentially lesson for you: when you go out, you kind of need all the information prior to the event just to prepare yourself, because yeah, we can do all that we can to try and avoid the foods that we shouldn't be eating or that we want to stay away from. But if it's literally put right in front of us on a plate, it's socially awkward to not eat it. That's how I feel anyway. So I feel like I have kind of like ruined my streak. And then when I got back to my hotel for the night, I was lying down trying to fall asleep, and I actually did notice some kind of weird sensations in my reproductive area. It actually felt like stabbing pains, and it only happened like once or twice, but I felt a couple or like one stabbing pain that made me think, is this the gluten? Is it causing inflammation? But again, you've just got to try and bring your mind back and try not to let it just run off on its own. The next morning as well, I kind of felt not really a stabbing pain, but I felt some kind of heaviness or like just a weird kind of feeling around my reproductive area. I don't know if it was the gluten from the night before. I don't know if it was just all in my head, my mind playing tricks on me because it knows that I had eaten gluten, and gluten is something that I was trying to avoid for all these months. I don't know, but my body did kind of feel a bit weird the night before and then the morning after. So I just got back on track like as soon as possible. I made sure that I didn't go down to breakfast at the hotel to have bread or whatever else they have for breakfast. I, bought my own breakfast. So I had a smoothie that I kept in the hotel room's fridge. I had that for my breakfast, gluten free, nothing to worry about. And then I went home in the like late morning, afternoon. So yeah, so that is kind of like my gluten-free journey so far. It's been a bit of a bumpy road. I've had to kind of restart it because I kind of gave in on Tuesday night. But definitely going forward, I intend to get back on my gluten-free sort of like vibe journey. And I appreciate that there may be times in my life where I do end up eating gluten, whether it's by mistake or perhaps because there's just literally nothing else to eat. I'll deal with those situations when the time comes, but for the most part, I intend to be gluten free for my hormones, for my health, for my autoimmune thyroid conditions, and yeah, just do whatever's in my power to support myself. So let's actually discuss like what is the issue with gluten? Like, what is wrong with it? Why do we hear people talk negatively about gluten? So, first things first, gluten is an issue for those of us who are susceptible to hormone driven conditions such as endo, fibroids, PCOS, even autoimmunity. We have susceptible or like weakened systems. So we need to be even more cautious about how we live, how we eat, how we sleep, all so many things. So the first issue with gluten is that it's inflammatory. And if you have endo, you've probably heard 101 people say that endo is a chronic inflammatory disease. So that means that endo is driven by inflammation. So us eating things that create even more inflammation in the body doesn't really make sense. We want to be avoiding things that cause inflammation, that add to the inflammation that is already in our systems. The second issue with gluten is that it can affect our gut lining. And gut health is, again, it's another thing that is crucial to endometriosis because gut health is key for how our body processes and eliminates excess hormones. Because endo is a hormone driven disease, illness, condition, whatever you want to call it, we don't need excess hormones remaining in our system. And what happens when our gut lining is either inflamed or irritated, it can mess up our body's ability to get rid of excess hormones. So things that disrupt our gut lining, make it more porous, add more holes to it, contribute to leaky gut. We need to be avoiding those things or at least reducing eating those things. And gluten is one of those things that further disrupt our gut lining and our gut health. And the third reason why gluten may be something that you wish to avoid or at least reduce is because it is linked to immune system dysfunction. Anything that overstimulates or overactivates our immune system, that can potentially worsen endo symptoms. And endometriosis has actually been linked to autoimmune diseases, i.e., there seems to be a link or a relationship between women who have endo and women who have confused, impaired immune systems. So again, because gluten is linked to triggering autoimmunity, it further makes gluten something to be cautious about. Now, talking about studies and research, yes, there definitely needs to be a lot more research done to look into the relationship between gluten and endo. There aren't many large-scale clinical trials that have been done recently or like to date, but what we know for sure is that women who eat gluten, they tend to experience worsened symptoms, and women who choose to eat a gluten-free diet, they tend to have a better quality of life, i.e. reduced pain, reduced symptoms, etc. And then even when you just listen to people's stories, like, online, anecdotally, many women who eliminate gluten from their diet, they tend to report fewer symptoms, fewer flare-ups, etc. So there definitely seems to be a link between gluten and endo, at least optically, and that is why I think it's worth us paying at least some attention to and looking into how our bodies respond to gluten. And then the thing to remember here is that gluten is not just in bread and pasta. It's actually snuck into so many different foods that you've really got to look at labels to see whether the food you're eating contains gluten. Gluten is snuck into soy sauce, salad dressings, gravy, soups, sauces, even the things that your food is coated in. I remember I was at another hotel last week and they had chicken on the menu and I was about to grab it, and then it said containing gluten on the card thing, and I was like, gluten? And it was because it was coated in some kind of breadcrumbs or something that made it, I don't know. But yeah, you've just got to be really cautious and read labels, because you may not expect gluten to be in the foods that you're eating, but it may well be in there. And then just because something says it's gluten-free on the label or the packet, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should eat it. Oftentimes, a lot of the food that is labeled or categorized as gluten-free, a lot of it is ultra processed food, which is also linked to inflammation and just is not really great for our bodies. So yeah, a lot of those foods contain additives and chemicals and things that is just not good for our health. So when we go gluten free, if that is something that you want to do, go fully gluten free, i.e. eat the non-processed food that is as close to its natural state as possible, as opposed to eating a lot of the gluten-free foods that are made in a factory or a lab. We need to be eating as close to nature, as close to whole foods, non-processed foods as possible. So this definitely requires a mindset shift. I know for perhaps most of us, we have grown up eating cereals that contain gluten, bread. For us trying to now be gluten free, it's a huge lifestyle change, and it feels restrictive as well, oftentimes, because it means that we can't go out to our favorite restaurants, or we no longer can eat the foods that we love. It requires a mindset change, and it actually requires us embodying the persona of a gluten-free person, of embodying the persona of a wellness girly, someone who is ultra focused on her health and her hormones and supporting her health, especially if you have endo or other conditions that are related to inflammation, immune dysregulation, all of this stuff. We just need to be extra cautious. We can't really afford to be taking risks or chances with our health. So yeah, it requires us starting to tell ourselves that I am a gluten-free girly, and it's not that I can't eat gluten, but it's that I choose to no longer eat gluten. This is a choice that we're making for our health, because we're putting our health and ourselves first, as opposed to our taste buds first or putting our wants and desires first. There may be mishaps on the way, you may make mistakes, but I think as long as we're trying and we're on that journey, that's what matters. This is basically a choice that I have made for myself personally, because I have gone through endo and the nightmare that endo is, and also like surgery is huge. Surgery is a trauma within itself. It's a trauma on the body, and it's also a trauma on ourselves mentally. It takes so much out of us. It's a huge thing to recover from. And me going through that endo surgery experience, although I'm so grateful that I had my surgery, I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to have to go through that again. So I'm now trying to do whatever is within my power to support my body, and obviously I'm praying and having faith in God as well. But in terms of the physical things that I'm doing, if it doesn't require too much of me, I'm going to do it. If it means that I can potentially live pain free, not have any more symptoms, not have the endo returning, I think being gluten free and doing other things isn't too much to ask. That's just my personal opinion. But I'm not saying that eating gluten causes endo. What I am saying is that it kind of only makes sense for us to do things that is supportive to our body and that doesn't add to inflammation and immune dysregulation and other things that are linked to endo and Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, all of that stuff. It's not an easy journey. So if you have been trying this, if you're on the same journey, let us know in the comments. I think, because we are the minority, it's nice when we hear other people share how they're doing it, how it's working for them. Let me know if this video resonated, if you learned anything as well. This is what we talk about here: endo, fibroids, autoimmune thyroid conditions. These are stuff that is, now part of my journey, unfortunately. So I want to talk about it and support all of us going through similar experiences. That's why I'm building the Hormone Sisterhood as well. And I'm actually branching that out to be more than a mentor or more than a membership, because I really want to empower those of us who are on our hormone health journeys to be able to implement a lot of this stuff on a day-to-day point of view. Like, we consume so much health and wellness content, we kind of know what we should be doing, but actually implementing that information and keeping on track and being consistent, that is a whole nother world. So what I'm really trying to focus the Hormone Sisterhood around is on building those daily and weekly habits that support our health and our hormones and that nurture us back into wellness. So the membership, or like the whole Hormone Sisterhood platform, will be really focused on like workshops and classes, exercise and intentional movement workshops, regulating our nervous system via breath work, all of the practical elements to balancing our hormones, not just like consuming more content, because real change comes when we do things differently as opposed to just learning a ton of stuff. So if you are interested in the Hormone Sisterhood, then I will leave the link to the website probably on the screen or down below, so that you can at least join the waitlist so that you know when doors are open. And of course, I'll continue to make a lot more videos about fibroids, PCOS, endo, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, all of this stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.